think you're here? It's always the question.
We didn't know.
Maybe they won't be here
Last
this
week
week.
they weren't here.
Maybe they went on a picnic.
They did all together.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
And we
Thanks,
were alone.
guys. Yeah.
Thanks for leaving us out of the picnic.
Yeah. God, I've been looking forward to a picnic, but no one ever asked me to one.
not in the last couple of months.
No.
Tell you that.
No fear.
Yeah, we turned on our Facebook Live and it just said no.
Yeah, that was last week. Sorry
No,
about
it
that.
said. Yeah, it was awful. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Melanie.
Hey, we're
The
here.
peoples are here again.
Oh, I bet
Monica
some people
and
didn't go
Corinne
to the
and Pam. Oh my goodness. Hola,
Hello.
hola.
Ah, they came. That's great. Good to see you.
It's wonderful to see you, and we've all made it through another week of
Well,
global shutdown.
Well, no, it's not really global shutdown anymore.
It's opening up.
It's all kinds of things.
Things are opening up. Yeah.
Everyone's got different experiences now.
Yep. I just keep reading books on plague and getting myself thoroughly distressed.
She does. She does like to read about the plague.
It's really good. Plague is a really if I had my PhD to do over again, I would totally do it on plague.
Me too. Definitely. Definitely. How about you guys? It's such a
Who else is here? Let's see. We got Marianne and Laurie and Ellen and Monica and Hannah and Marcia and Stephanie and Janice and Lucy and Corey. Oh my God, so many amazing people.
Many of you.
Keith
Thank
and
you.
Catherine and Loyola. Lovola.
Lavola.
Lovola. That's a beautiful name. It's just I can't see.
Hi. Good to see you. Today we're talking about how to bounce back from anything.
Yeah, anything. I've known some people who are bouncing back from COVID-19 at this particular juncture. We're trying to bounce back from the horrible shock of not having Facebook work for us last week.
Tell you what.
And we hope you guys are bouncing back from that same horrible disaster.
And any other disasters.
But I do have a point to make about this.
What is it?
Yeah.
Or did you want me to go away, or is it a point you can make while I'm still
I could do it if you wanted to just sit there. Or
Are you launching? As a beginning?
I've sort of launched.
All right, I'm gonna. You'd think we'd have this down by now. No,
it doesn't work that way.
Now I go over there, and then you guys ask your questions. Questions, brief and to the point. And then I come back, and then Martha answers them with her genius.
Yeah.
So I'll be back soon. Oh, sorry
I left
for the
my
earthquake.
genius at home. Oh, I am at home. It's somewhere. It's under the bed. Okay, you guys. It's pretty. Are we doing okay technologically speaking? Good. So every single person in the world, I believe, has been impacted by this pandemic, which is fascinating to me. There's just never been anything so big to look at as a fan of sociology. And I started looking at the way people have bounced back from previous pandemics. And then I started looking at just bouncing back in general. And I wanted to bounce back from things. And I know you guys are bouncing back from, well, I hope you're bouncing back from a lot of what's happened. Maybe not. Maybe you're still sick. One of the things that's rough is, for me, I always look every day at how many confirmed cases of COVID there are, how many deaths, and how many recoveries. And the part that always really grabs me, I mean, aside from the deaths, is that if you add up the deaths and the recoveries, it's still not as many as the people still sick. So it goes on. And the people I love who've had it say it's like nothing. It's like nothing else they've ever had. And it's hard to bounce back from, for sure. So then there's the economic impact, which has been huge. I don't need to tell you how huge it's been. There's the social impact of not being able to be with other people as much as we would. And there's the psychological impact of losing all the things that we had planned. We've talked about all this before. So I've talked about grieving, and I've talked about coping. And today I want to talk about rebounding. Because there is a quality in the human species called resilience that is what makes us such a dominant species. Like, we don't have as much raw brute strength as a lot of animals. We can't fly, we can't swim very well, we can't run very fast compared to other animals, but by goodness, can we bounce back? And that's what resilience means. It comes from the Latin, it means rebound. And that means, by definition, you're hitting something. To bounce back, you have to hit something. And the harder you hit it, potentially, the higher you bounce. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I want you to think about this in terms of the way the pandemic or any other change in your life right now is impacting you negatively. Like, what's the hardest blow you've taken? Because that, weirdly, is the place where you're going to be able to rebound the furthest. So I was doing research on this, and I watched the famous boxing match called the Rumble in the Jungle that happened in 1974 between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. George Foreman was 7 years younger. Ali was 32, he was 25. And he had punching power like nobody had ever seen. I mean, the guy was a machine. He was a pile driver. He had so much power. So Ali was a 4-1 underdog. And he went in there, and for almost half an hour, most of 8 rounds, he basically just covered his face with his gloves and leaned against the ropes. And I don't mean just like touching the ropes. I mean, watch it. He's literally like stretched out on these ropes like they're a hammock or something. And Foreman couldn't really get him in the face and chest because he was covering, but he just beat the crap out of his body. And the whole time, this is what the sportscasters didn't know, Muhammad Ali was whispering things to him like, come on, that all you got? Come on, give me a real punch. They said you could punch. Like, he was constantly goading him. And you just watch it. And Foreman is just pounding and pounding and pounding. If you've ever done fighting, I used to take martial arts, and we used to do a thing called randori, which means chaotic fighting. So we weren't practicing our little forms or anything. We would just go in and fight each other. I was a biter. I was the smallest, weakest person in there, so I bit, even though there's technically no biting in karate. But it was randori. It was chaotic. What was I? Yeah. So I didn't bite like people's limbs off or anything. I just bit them gently. This is a completely different story. What I want to talk about is how Muhammad Ali leaned against the ropes and watched Foreman. That's what I was going to say. Randori is exhausting. I have done running, I have done rowing, I have done biking. I've cross-country skied. I've never, ever done anything as exhausting as fighting. And what happened to Foreman is he finally got worn out. And there were people thinking that Ali was being killed and saying, this is impossible. It's unbearable to watch this man being massacred in such a humiliating fashion, just cowering against the ropes. What they didn't know was that Ali was deliberately using the elasticity of the ropes, which are bouncy, to take the force of Foreman's punches. So his body was actually transferring these massive blows into the elastic cords. And these are things that are very resilient. They bounce. And so he wasn't taking nearly as much punishment as it looked like he was taking. And he waited and waited and waited until Foreman was good and tired, dropping his hands, getting overconfident. And he came out with a flurry of punches. Ali did. This it couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 punches. It was like boom, 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 boom. And Foreman was out cold on the canvas. Well, not out cold, but he was on his back on the canvas. And Ali was above him going, well, there you go. Now, this was my lesson in resilience because Ali was a very smart man. And here's the deal. When you go in against overwhelming odds, and our odds against a pandemic are much worse than 4-1. Here's the thing. You first have to acknowledge this is the situation. This is a virus I could catch, and it could really wreck my immune system because nobody's immune to this thing. And anybody who says that they are is running some danger. So Ali went in realistically knowing he was the weaker fighter. And he was humble enough to allow that to be the case. He wasn't in denial. And so because he was acknowledging the truth, So honesty is the first thing we need to be resilient. We need to be honest about what we're facing and what our odds are and what the reality is. Then he started to think resourcefully. Okay, so the odds are against me. I probably don't have as much endurance or raw power as a younger opponent, bigger opponent. But what I have is the nature of the ring itself. I have my ability to taunt people, and I have the ability to deflect blows. And that doesn't need as much strength as just power punching. So he used everything, and no one had ever used this strategy of leaning into the ropes. He later called it his rope-a-dope strategy, and people started using it. But they didn't think of using it before because it didn't look good. He was leaning against something. He was protecting himself. That's not what a fighter does. Well, who said? So when we go out there to deal with life, it's like we say, I will not acknowledge that I'm terrified, lonely, and weak because I've been quarantined for 2 months by myself. Why not? Why not acknowledge, look, I really got to lean on somebody because this is more than I can take. You know, my loved one is sick. I need to lean on someone. I need to. One thing I read that made me rejoice online was that people are going and making online pages to talk about their financial problems because of the pandemic. And I even read an article that said this is a massive break with American psychology. For those of you who aren't American, I can tell you this. I learned it in graduate school. Americans would rather tell you their weirdest, craziest sex fantasy than tell you how much money they actually earn in a year. It's like a deep secret for reasons I won't go into. It's historical. It's all about Calvinism. Anyway, Americans don't like to talk about money, and to say that you don't have enough money is a sign of weakness, and nobody wants to do it. People are finally starting to do that because when we tell each other the truth, we can lean on each other. We can start sharing resources. We can start sharing ideas. We can start helping each other access ways of, jobs, government support, people who can help. A lot of things, if we're willing to lean, if we're willing to say, I don't have the strength to just stand up there and punch, I'm going to lie back, deflect the punches, and let something support me. And the thing that supports you is mainly other people. So that's the thing. You have the humility, the honesty to say what the odds really are, the humility to not look great all the time. And then you have to have patience, 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 because it takes a while for your opponent to wear itself out. And I know, I'm like, okay, is this enough already? Yes, it is certainly enough. Let us all go and be normal. Except we don't really, the scientists tell us we're probably not really there. So I was talking to my daughter the other day, and we were talking about how we hope, and I still believe, that this disease is helping human beings change their behavior in a way that could actually save us from really wiping ourselves out by destroying our ecosystems. And a lot of people have been texting me or emailing me and saying, well, it's not working. You guys, it's only been a few months. It has plenty of time to do its work. And what my daughter Kat said to me is, I hope that this thing lasts as long as it takes to do what it's supposed to do. And I hope that as long as it takes isn't as long as I think. So we're all caught in this mixture of, well, at least I'm caught in this mixture of, I want this to do some good. I don't want it to just be a hiccup that where we all went right back to doing the destructive things we were doing before. I want it to be a transformational thing in my own life and in the lives of everyone, including the lives of beings that are not human, like the wonderful animals that are coming out. There was a bear scene in Spain for the first time in 150 years last week. I opened my curtains in the morning and a little fox is just trotting down in front of my house because the animals are feeling safe again. So yeah, I hope this transforms the world for a lot of different beings. And I'm willing to be patient and see how long it takes. And if this doesn't turn out to be the thing that turns the corner, I will continue to stay my course and be patient, waiting for another thing. But if you get those three things, honesty, humility, and patience, and we can really lean against each other, and acknowledge the truth about health, finances, feelings, everything, and then allow ourselves to trust this process, to be here in the given moment, and trust that it will last as long as it takes, and that as long as it takes will be shorter than we think it is. I think that we can all relax more in every given moment, and that makes us resilient. And with those three things, honesty, humility, and patience, we can bounce back from pretty much anything that comes to impact us. And I always say, we'll live through everything but one. But I happen to believe that even that, the one thing we don't make it through, is going to be something we bounce back from, just not maybe in our physical form. And that's just my bias. Is it true? I don't know. I just like believing it. So could we get some questions? Rowie, would you like to return and report?
I would.
Should I show the folks my fabulous outfit and how well?
I don't know if the folks are ready for this.
Nobody does anything normal below the waist anymore.
If you're wondering if that was long underwear, yes.
Yes,
it was long underwear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so many good questions already. Let me just dig them up from my little tomb. Okay, so you kind of answered this, but I think there's a bit more in here. Jennifer asked, this seems like it might be impossible to answer, but how long do we stay in the fight taking the punches? We want to fight back and stand up for ourselves, but we also know that to be reactionary is not the way. How do we know when it's time to come off the ropes?
Yeah, the time you come off the ropes is when there will come a moment, this is my theory, and I've experienced it many times in my life because I've bounced back from a few things. We all have, right? And here's the thing, I've tried to force it before it was ready. One of the things, when I talked about the fact that we have to grieve what we've lost, one of the things that a lot of us do, and I used to do this all the time, is that when I'm grieving something, going through the sadness, the anger, the bargaining, the whole thing, I try to end that by jumping to something new and saying, I'm going to start a whole new thing. That's not the patience it takes to actually rebound. And what happens then is it actually takes longer for me to recover because I've messed up the process. When I've actually relaxed into each moment as it comes, there is a time, and I'm always quoting her, when the risk, she said, and then came the day when the risk it took to remain tight in a bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom. So there's this moment when you open up naturally, and it's happened to me every time I've been down and out. I want to come back sooner. I try, I fail. I feel like I'm cursed. And then when I'm really not paying much attention, when I've just relaxed into the state of being I'm in, something opens inside me and things seem to start happening by themselves. And if you watch that fight, the rumble in the jungle, you'll see how Ollie just waits for the absolute perfect moment. And watching it, that Foreman doesn't have anything left. And he waited 8 rounds for that. And that's a long time in boxing. He just relaxed. That's the thing. He found a way to relax while he waited. And that's the key. We don't get patient by sitting and going, I hope it happens. We relax into the moment. We get a coloring book. We get a puzzle. We get our friends around us on Skype and, have a beer or something. Sorry if that triggered anyone. Have a cup of water.
There's a lot of people asking variations on a question, which I will paraphrase as saying, there's bouncing back and then there's bouncing into something new. And how does this relate to actually transforming the time that we're in?
That's a really good point because we don't bounce back, really. We bounce forward.
There you go.
And because we're on a trajectory. I'll never forget seeing, this blew my mind, and it happened when I was in my 50s. All my life, I'd seen the model of the planets, right? You've seen the thing. There's a sun in the middle, and then Mars is here, and the Earth is out here, and Neptune is way, way out there. And it always was like a spinning disc. And then someone pointed out to me that it's moving through space. So instead of being like this, like a plate, our galaxy is a vortex. It's moving forward all the time. It never comes around at the same spot in space. We are moving all the time forward. We're set on a trajectory when we're born, and we cannot help always moving forward in the arrow of time, which, by the way, physicists don't know why it only works one way or why we can't stop it. It goes that one direction, and we can't help bouncing forward. So that's where the statement, no man can ever step in the same river twice. And furthermore, the man stepping in the river is not the same as the guy who stepped in it before. It's inevitable that we bounce forward. And part of the deliciousness of waiting for the right time to blossom and feeling yourself bouncing naturally into something else is that you won't be expecting the new iteration of your life. It will be better than you think. This has been my experience with me and with clients and hundreds of clients. So if you let yourself follow the natural trajectory your life is trying to take, and you don't force it or try to control it with your mind, you will bounce forward into something better than you've ever had. I really, really believe that.
Yeah, I do too.
It's natural. You don't have to do it.
Yeah. So, Martha, from Vicky, what advice do you have for people who are physically alone as we wait? She hasn't had physical contact with friends and family since mid-March, and it's tough.
Oh, gosh, that's hard, man. I mean, solitary confinement is the single most horrible thing that we can do to prisoners, short of torturing them to death. It is, and maybe they'd prefer to be tortured to death. I'm so sorry for everybody who's going through that. And what I would say is, like, really double up on the telecommunications for sure, because I know when we did our course Practical Wayfinding, we're still doing it, and then I have the live calls. I record some of the lectures, and then I come on and I see all these faces on the screen, and some of them I coach. The first time it happened, my heart just exploded. It was the first new person who'd come into my house since the shutdown, and I couldn't believe how it lifted my spirits. And I'm not alone. If you are alone, one other thing that a lot of people have been doing, and I highly recommend it, is people have been adopting pets. It's the first time that I can remember where the pet shelters have actually run out of pets fairly, on a regular basis, but they still get them. There are new ones coming all the time. And another living creature with its head on your lap, or asking you to be fed, or going for a walk, or purring, or whatever, it goes a long way toward our really deep biological need to connect physically with another creature. So please, if you can't possibly get a pet, wrap yourself in soft blankets, rock yourself. These are things people do like kids do when they're not nurtured enough, and it helps. It really helps in a crisis. And then, as soon as possible, start finding ways that you can safely be with people who are absolutely not infectious, and you can connect, because no one should have to be alone this long. It's awful.
Really awful.
Yeah.
Gail asks, can you talk about the difference between productive waiting or relaxing versus unhealthy escapism?
I just thought, there's unhealthy escapism? My entire life is escapism. Wow, how could that be wrong? I think unhealthy escapism is stuff like catastrophic fantasizing, thinking ahead to all the horrible things that could happen. Oh, my life is ticking away. That is, what was the term she just used? Unhealthy escapism, right. Healthy escapism is where you think about the wonderful things that could happen. I have been accused many times. When I was growing up, my family was like, why are you so positive? Don't you know pessimists are right more often than optimists? And I'm like, dude, you only have to get the lottery right once to benefit. I will buy a ticket. I don't really buy the tickets, but I figuratively do, because I'm always thinking about the wonderful things that are going to happen. I just can't help myself. When we had our MBI team meeting in November, And
I think we might have told you guys.
We've told you about this, how somebody said, be ready. And we were all like, oh, and I thought something amazingly wonderful was going to happen. And now I think it was the pandemic we were supposed to be ready for. And I'm like, that's more of a mixed bag than what I had been imagining. But I'm really glad that I tend to imagine pronoid stories. There's paranoid, which is believing everybody's against you and everything is against you. And then there's pronoid, where you just believe irrationally that everything's happening for you. And even if it's not, even if that's wrong, you spend so much more time being happy. So, I made my little mandala out of question marks, and now I color it. And I think, what wonderful things could happen as I'm coloring this and doing something with your hands. I keep quoting Maho Mofino, who wrote this book. It's not out yet. It's called Break the Good Girl Myth. But she is a brilliant woman who went to design school. And whenever any student there was stuck with a problem, a teacher would give them a bunch of stuff, like some gum wrappers and a toothpick, and say, make something. Because as soon as they started making something, they were fully engaged in the moment. I like to think of it as the mind being destructive versus the mind being creative. And if we just sit there spinning our wheels and fearing what will come next and wishing that we could go back to before, that's unhealthy.
Right, but so there's productive waiting and relaxing, and there's unhealthy escapism. Binging 15 seasons of Criminal Minds in 3 days. Which camp does that fall into? Because neither of the things you're saying are actually what I would call escapism. Escapism is when you do something that blocks out the present.
If it starts to feel toxic, stop it. Because I have done I once binged a whole bunch of The Sopranos. That's a dark show. Brilliant, but dark. You will feel the toxicity of something in your body if you're doing it too much to escape. And it's similar to addiction. It has, there's a certain level that makes you feel better. And then there's a level past that makes you feel sick. Mm-hmm. And if you get addicted to the amount that makes you feel sick, you can get very sick indeed. So I tend not to stick with something that feels icky. This is something I learned, not something I always did. And that's why I'm always bouncing into these pronoid fantasies. I make stuff, I think of wonderful things that could happen. And then I binge a few seasons of Criminal Minds until it feels icky.
I love the idea of coloring. That feels like such healthy escapism to me.
But it
coloring
could get...
and yeah, but there are so many escapist things that we sort of know are iffy.
Yeah.
And that we're doing them for the wrong reasons. But but what I'm trying to say, sorry, Gail, is I'm trying to say I don't think there's relaxing productively or escaping unhealthily. I think you can escape healthily. Yeah. Or else my entire life is a lie.
Yeah, and the question is always, is it delicious? Is it delicious? Is it delicious? If it's delicious and it's Criminal Minds, enjoy. But I actually have been watching a fair amount of Criminal Minds, and there's a time when it's not so delicious. One more helping of serial killing is taking me into a dark place. So then I go color until that's not delicious anymore. Always be delicious.
Always be delicious.
That's how to bounce back from everything.
Don't have a criminal mind.
Don't. Or if you have one, keep it locked in the basement.
Oh dear.
So, should we do one more before we have to go?
Let's find one. You find one. Oh, by the way, anyone who wants to color in what I would call a mandala and she would call a mandala, please go to Marty's Facebook page. It's just there as a post a few days ago.
I just snagged it, put it on my desktop, and then opened it with preview and printed it out, and boom, there it was.
Low tech, as it were.
Yeah, so that was one fun thing I did. It's fun to sit and think of creative ideas, and it's more fun when you sit and think of creative ideas with a posse of folks like we have, such as we have here.
Yeah.
So I will give you my idea of one thing that was really fun. Make a mandala out of question marks, or color the one I made. Now you think of something that's going to help you wait patiently and honestly.
In my personal version is I'm going to color a mandala.
Well, I know what she's been doing. She keeps saying, I'm going to bring order to my realm.
If you don't know me, it's self-pretentious, but
No, she's got
Being
these
silly.
2 rooms that she's been redecorating and redecorating and redecorating. And every day she's like, I'm going to go bring order to my realm and redecorate. Like she just moves the furniture around it. But it's making her happy.
Yeah, it is.
They always look nice when she's done it. The next day she has to bring order to the realm again. So until we come out of lockdown, the realm will be ordered and reordered.
It's the last thing I do.
And
And the second last thing I do.
And
And the third last thing I do.
Hey, you guys, it's so great to see
Yeah.
your wonderful names and faces on the tiny icons. And we're all going to bounce back from this
Yeah.
thing. And we're going to bounce
Bounce
forward
forward.
into more creative and wonderful things. And I can't wait to hear what you guys come up with. So put them all up, like on the social medias, the things you do to bounce forward and to keep yourselves occupied creatively.
Hashtag bounce forward.
Hashtag bounce forward. Okay, I got to put that up right now.
All right. We see you next
Love
week.
you. See you next week.
Bye.